Joining us now is Brent Huffman, who is the director of a film called, I'll try to get the pronunciation right here, Saving Miss Aynak. It is, well, I'll let him tell the story of the film and what his current campaign is now related to it. Brent, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. So yes, you said the film title correctly. It's called Saving Miss Aynak. Essentially, it's a story of economic development versus cultural heritage. So at the heart of the story, there is this enormous ancient Buddhist city in Afghanistan that's over 500,000 square meters in size. So it's about 100 football fields in terms of size. Miss Aynak, this ancient Buddhist city, is going to be destroyed, completely destroyed, to make room for a copper mine later this year. So the film sort of documents the process of Afghan archaeologists attempting to save smaller pieces, whatever they can, frantically try to do rescue excavation before this whole area will be completely destroyed to make room for this copper mine. Basically, a Chinese mining company, a government-owned mining company, will destroy the site for what's supposedly $100 billion worth of copper.
So tell us a little bit. Let me just jump in for a second there, Brent.
Sure.
Tell us a little bit about what Mace. Well, first of all, for people who are hearing it and not seeing it, it's spelled MES space AYNAK. So tell us a little bit about the site itself. What is there? What do they believe is there? How much time would they like to have? What would well, let's start with how old is it, and what do the archaeologists believe they could find given enough time?
Sure. So there's layers of discovery. So at the top layer is this Buddhist civilization, this sort of Buddhist kingdom that's about 2,000 years old. And then they found remnants of an older Bronze Age site underneath that that suggests it's 5,000 years or older, so another civilization. They've only discovered about 10%, or they've only kind of excavated 10% of the site. So they're really at the tip of the iceberg in terms of what's there. There could be so much there that they haven't discovered. They believe it should be at least a 30 to 40 year excavation, and right now they've only had sort of a sporadic 3 years. There's constant problems at the archaeology site with payment and Taliban attacks. So they've, archaeologists are nowhere near, where they want to be in terms of excavation. Yeah.
Sure. And we're talking with Brent Huffman, who is the director of the film Saving Miss Aynak. And tell us a little bit. I don't know how much we know about the mining company itself. It's owned. It's a Chinese state-owned mining company. Do we know if it has agreements with American or European or local Afghan firms? This is in Afghanistan itself, right? So
yes. Sorry. Yes.
So they're dealing with a government that is very closely tied to, in fact, being maintained militarily by the United States. And so I'm wondering whether we know anything about the relationship of this mining venture with any American firms. Are they providing, or European firms, are they providing equipment or consulting, or is there any sort of trade agreement with them? Are there, in other words, what I'm getting at, are there financial interests we might know about that might be working against the goal of saving Miss Aynak?
Yes, there definitely are. Though the exact details are very murky. Initially, when I became interested in the story, in 2010, a New York Times article had suggested that the U.S. military was actually providing security for this Chinese mining company and helping them set up. It was a really odd. I thought that was a really odd story. The Chinese government-owned company is working directly with the Afghan government. So on paper, that's where their contract is with the Afghan government. But the U.S. military, the World Bank have really been kind of pulling the strings on this and really wanted to happen. Supposedly the U.S. military has put millions of dollars into infrastructure in the area and potentially to the Ministry of Mines to help kind of speed up the excavation process. But I've never seen any evidence of any of that, any of that funding on the ground.
Candidly, I would think, and again, I'm speculating, but I would think it would almost be inevitable that the U.S. would have to be cooperating in some way. So here's, I guess, and then we'll pivot to what you're trying to do here. But Brent Huffman, director of Saving Mace Aynak, the way I guess the way I'm looking at this now is. First of all, I've gotten very curious now about the financial. I may try to dig myself. Who knows? But I think it's important. We'll be talking in a second about your campaign to save Mace Aynak. But I think it's important to know, what the interests are involved, and what strikes me about this. And it's interesting. I don't know. I want to ask if you've given any thought to it. When the Taliban was threatening the famous Buddhas of Bamiyan, which they eventually destroyed, and which are now being rebuilt. It was a global story, and it was those were relics of the same civilization, if I understand correctly, the same Buddhist civilization. It seems to me that on the one hand, you have something like that gets worldwide attention, the destruction of these ancient treasures, these antiquities. On the other hand, you have an incredible treasure trove of knowledge and antiquities here at Mace Aynak, and it's gotten no attention. And I'm always curious about why one thing gets attention and the other thing doesn't. Have you given that any thought?
I have, my big fear is that Mace Aynak will get a ton of attention in that same vein as the Buddhas of Bamiyan. It got worldwide attention when they were blown up in front of our eyes, and my fear is that Mace Aynak will get the same attention when it is blown up. When that we see the video of this, these temples and these towering Buddha statues being, dynamite being spread around and then being blown up and bulldozed over. Then the world will sort of gasp in horror, just like we did at Bamiyan, and say, "Why didn't we save this ancient city? Why didn't somebody do something?" And that's what I'm trying to do, is to rally support and raise awareness so that we can save Mace Aynak, before it's too late. That Mace Aynak doesn't have to be like Bamiyan. But I think you're right.
Last observation, by the way, Brent. When I was a kid, and that was a long time ago, we used to they used to send us to preschool where they'd show us these old movies about lost cities. They were either fictional or usually fictional, the Lost Kingdom of whatever. But I was just fascinated by these. I think that's how George Lucas came to be inspired to make Raiders of the Lost Ark. And this is a real lost city. This is an incredible treasure trove. And unlike the Buddhas of Bamiyan, it can't be rebuilt because we don't even know most of what's in there. So tell us a little bit about what you're trying to do now. You have an Indiegogo campaign and so on. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so I'm partnering with Kartemquin, a documentary production company in Chicago that is sort of famous for social issue films. They made Hoop Dreams and The Interrupters and films like that. So I'm partnering with them to raise money through Indiegogo to save Mace Aynak, to get the film shown around the world, to partner with other outlets, educational outlets, screen the film as much as we can, and then we also have an official petition that I'm going to bring, with the money that we raise, bring to Afghanistan, meet with the new president Ashraf Ghani, and screen the film, for him, and really plead, with him, with the petition, that Mace Aynak needs to be preserved, and that, If mining needs to happen in the area, it can happen in a different way. It can happen at other parts of the site. That the ancient Buddhist city does not have to be destroyed this year. So, if any of your listeners want to help in this, global effort to save our world history, to save this heritage, they can go to the Indiegogo site and learn more. There.
Okay, great. And I know you're also trying to petition UNESCO to make it a World Heritage Site, which I think is a great idea.
Yes.
So people, first of all, you have a hashtag, which is for Twitter, which is Save May Aynak. That's Save MESAYNAK, all run together. Secondly, people can Google Saving May Aynak or your name, I imagine, Brent E. Huffman, and find out more. So, Brent, first of all, I want to say thank you for taking on this important work and doing so much. And secondly, thank you for coming on the program.
Oh, thank you so much. It was my pleasure.
We will be right back after this. I'm Richard RJ Eskow, and this is The Zero